Tuesday, March 2nd. This is the agenda. This is the Board of Fire Commissioners special meeting. And you want to go ahead and call the roll? Leticia, do you want to call the roll?
Thank you. Ibarra, Glazier,
Here.
Cara, standby. Thank you. Ninberg, here. Woods Gray,
Here.
Fire Chief Terraza,
Present.
Deputy City Attorney Linda Nguyen.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Leticia, I think you had something to read regarding how persons may call in and give public comment.
Yes, thank you. Persons may listen to this meeting live by dialing any of the telephone numbers listed on the cover of the agenda for this meeting. Should you, dial one of these numbers, you will be able to listen to the meeting, but will not be able to give public comment during the meeting. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Fire Commissioners on any item on the agenda prior to action by the board on that specific item or during general public comment should call 1-669-900-9128. When you are asked for a meeting ID, please enter 822-4190-6351, followed by the pound sign. Then press the pound sign again to continue. You will then be joined into the meeting. To alert the board that you want to give public comment, press *9. You will then, you will be called on by the board who may refer to you using the last 3 digits of your phone number from which you are calling. When unmuted by staff, please state your name and press *6 to unmute yourself. As a general reminder, public comment will be limited to 2 minutes for each item addressed. Time cannot be ceded to another speaker, and an individual may speak only once during any individual agenda item. Only those who are in the queue when the president begins public comment on a specific agenda item will be allowed to speak on that item. These instructions may also be found on the front page of the meeting agenda. Thank you, Commissioner Glazier.
Thank you. Why don't we go ahead? Let's go ahead and move to flag salute and moment of silence. Chief.
Okay, please, everybody, stand, right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the LA Fire Department who devoted their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioner comments today?
Oh, good morning.
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 Jimmy Woods Gray, just because we're on the virtual, it helps with the record keeping. As we leave Black History Month, the month of February, and we're into the month of March and saluting Women's History Month. I've neglected to talk about Black History Month last time because I somehow just forgot. So many things to talk about. But as the daughter of a sharecropper, I feel that it's just important to bring back, never ever bring back, but to live every day Black History Month. So it's so fitting that today we're having the equity, the racial equity report being presented. And I'm very pleased that that is coming before us. And I salute all of the women in the LAFD, because all of these women who work for LAFD are as sworn officers or sworn staff, I salute them because to me, they're all heroes. And I want to recognize those women in this department and offer them full support to continue, and hope that in the future we'll have more women that we can salute in not just in the month of March, but throughout the whole year. And I'm certain that I'm remiss in mentioning some woman who made an outstanding contribution to this department. But I just at this time am not prepared with that information. But I don't want to forget the women today stand on the shoulders of, and the women who are here today, who future women will stand on their shoulders and make this department the fine department that it is. I also would like to ask, I'll leave that. I won't ask that this meeting. That's all I want to say right now. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, this is Commissioner.
Yeah, Commissioner Hara, go
Commissioner
ahead.
Hara.
Mhm.
Okay, I think the agenda item today is very apropos, Racial Equity Action Plan. The reason being, as you all probably remember, I've been the manager for the Charles Lee University Martin Luther King Hospital COVID test site. And this very week, we are also converting to become a vaccination station as well to serve the brown and black communities. And in addition, I have also been doing vaccinations at the Kedron Community Health Center, which again serves predominantly the black and brown communities. And so basically, this Racial Equity Action Plan is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm so happy that Commissioner Woods-Gray has been pushing that this be addressed. And you can put me on mute now because I'm at the test site.
Thank you, Dr. Hara, for all
Thank you,
your
Dr.
work.
Hara. Thank you, Dr. Hara. Any other commissioner comments? Okay, I also wanted to just share a few comments this morning as we approach this discussion about the Racial Equity Action Plan. So, as some of you may know, I run an organization in my as my day job that works to provide rehabilitative services and second chance programming and entrepreneurship for currently and formerly incarcerated adults across the country. And it's not often that my professional job overlaps with my work on the Fire Commission, but in the last 6 months, it did overlap with the fire service. You see, many of our individuals in our program end up becoming firefighters through the fire camps in the California correctional system. And one such individual ended up going to the Ventura training facility, which is run by the CCC in coordination with CAL FIRE. And last year, several LAFD firefighters and officers joined me out there to do a resume workshop. One of the individuals who was in that workshop ended up getting hired on the hand crew at OCFA, despite his background. And I want to salute the chief at OCFA for giving him that fair chance to be hired. Unfortunately, this individual was one of the two that was burned over in the fires, one of the fires in Orange County last fall. Oh. And he has survived and is recovering from his injuries. But I bring it up because this is an individual who made some serious mistakes as a young man, served his time, and did the work to transform himself to become a firefighter. And he was on the road. He was on the road to becoming a full firefighter in the OCFA, and Chief Fennessy there saw the promise in him and was willing to go against the grain, consider hiring. I'm not sure how this applies to the Los Angeles City Fire Department, but I note when we get to the racial equity plan, that there is an expansion of our Crew 3 that is being discussed. And we will be talking about background checks later. And I think it's always important for us to think about how can we give fair chances to people who have done the work? And how can that be something that we think about as a department in the future? Because those individuals who are in those fire camps, they give the way that all firefighters do and deserve our respect. And that's all I have to say about that. So thank you for hearing me on this. And with that, we'll close out
Very
Commissioner
good
comments.
point, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. But we'll move to report of the fire chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. You know, I'm going to pass on the acknowledgement to Chief Fennessy. Him and I talk almost weekly, and he did brief me immediately following the burnover of the two camp crew members in Orange County. I wasn't aware one of them was somebody who had worked with you, Commissioner. So I know one of them was released from the hospital, I think just last week. They suffered some devastating burns and have a long road to recovery, but they got a lot of support down there in Orange County. Now let me move on to meetings and events. Wednesday, February 3rd, it's along the theme we've been talking about in terms of social equity. I was down there at the Elgin Sutton Recreation Center in South LA in Fire Station 57's first in to monitor our first mobile team. That was our very first one in Harris Dawson's district. We now have 5 in hotspots in South LA, East LA, and the San Fernando Valley. And we will be growing our mobile team capability to 10 in the coming weeks. So we have 3 elements of our vaccination effort. We have the super site like Dodger Stadium. We have the mobile teams that are deployed throughout the city in hotspots. And then we have the homebound effort, which will be starting very soon. So we can visit people that can't get out of their homes to come to the mobile team sites or to the super sites. On February 4th, I had an opportunity to meet and greet Teddy, our new peer support therapy dog. Teddy, I understand, is very popular, and I wanted to see for myself what's the difference between Teddy and a regular dog. And Teddy's trained to detect people who are suffering depression. And he uses techniques where he'll lean into you and forces you kind of to pet him. And I think we're onto something. We have Teddy, and we have another dog with Captain Gary. So I'm all for trying things that are going to help our people down the road. So we'll see where that goes. On Tuesday, February 9th, I had the honor to be a pallbearer in former Councilman Tom LaBonge's funeral. Myself and Police Chief Moore and a lot of other general managers had the honor to carry Tom to his final resting place. It was a beautiful ceremony, and appropriate that it overlooks Griffith Park, which was Tom's favorite place. So I was honored to represent the men and women at that ceremony. On Tuesday, February 16th, I made 2 site visits with our new council member, DeLeon, at the Figueroa lot, as well as the Arroyo Seco lot, to look at pallet housing projects to see what we could do to work together to reduce the cost of these developments. We made some progress working with Chief Crowley and her team in building and safety and the council member staff. We figured out ways to reduce costs so we can get more of these pallet shelter developments built. And then lastly, on last Friday, February 26th, I had the opportunity to greet our retirees. We have approximately 40 LAFD retirees who have volunteered to come back and help us vaccinate people. You know, they don't have to do this, but there was a lot of interest by our retiree population to get involved. So we figured out a way, and I was very, very proud that they stepped up and are going to fill some important roles in helping us do the things I told you about, the homebound program, the mobile team program. Our retirees are uniquely qualified. Some of them still have paramedic license. They know our radios, they can drive vehicles. So we're going to partner them up with clinicians, nurses, and advanced practitioners so that we can form teams to give more vaccines. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. And I think that's a spectacular idea, is to have the retirees helping out. So well done on pulling them in on the effort. All right, let's go ahead and move to the consent agenda items. I need to hold items 3F and 3G because we have comments on those, an amendment on F and a comment on G. So if I could get a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a comment for 3A.
A, you got it. Let's go ahead and we'll hold 3A. So in that case, could I get a motion to move the recommendations for items, to move to adopt the recommendations for items 3B, C, D, and E?
So moved.
Okay, I have a second. Very good. That was moved by Commissioner Woods Gray, seconded by Commissioner Ninberg. And let's go ahead and call the vote.
Stand by, I'm double checking to see if we have any public comment. I don't see any hand raised. Oh, Commissioner Hara, that's for the vote. One moment, please.
Okay.
Okay, I've asked him to unmute. Glazier.
Aye.
Hara.
Aye.
Ninberg.
Aye.
Woods Gray.
Aye.
Motion passes for the consent items.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go ahead and call item 3A, report by the department on the status of LAFD projects.
Yes, I just wanted to call attention to the ACTS report that is on the total reports. The first item, I think, on one of the pages. Just to note the fact that we want to see that report as soon as possible. And get an update on what is happening with the arson people. And that is the only reason I pulled that,
Okay, very good.
so I could comment on it.
No problem. Any other comments on this item? Thank you, Commissioner. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the recommendation for item 3A.
I so move. Jimmy Woods Gray.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Nimberg, second. Thank you. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
Glazier.
Aye.
Hara. I see Escobar's hand raised, so stand by. There's Commissioner Hara.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Ninberg.
Aye.
Woods Gray.
Aye.
Stand by for, we may have a comment here. Ask to unmute. And let me mute Hara, unmute Escobar.
Mr. Chair, it's actually too late to provide public comment because the commission has already voted. So
I understand.
Okay.
He didn't respond to my unmute several times before, so I'm just going to lower his hand.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving ahead, let's go ahead and take item 3F. Report by the Department on Fire Prevention Inspection Activity, first, second, third, and fourth quarter of calendar year 2020.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Commissioner, Chief Terrazas, Council, as well as Ms. Gomez and everybody listening in. My name is Kristen Crowley, and I'm the Deputy Chief of our Fire Prevention and Public Safety Bureau. Before you, we have submitted a 19-page performance-based inspection activity report outlining 4 of our 5 sections within the Fire Prevention Bureau. So the report has the statistics and metrics for our industrial commercial section, our public safety section, fire development services section, and our administrative section. Our 5th section is our certified unified program agency, which will report their performance in the near future. So on the record, we wanted to correct a few areas within the report that were miscalculated. On page 1, the first table that you'll see, our overall inspections conducted were corrected to 18,464 inspections, and so it should not show the 19,839. So once we recalculated it, and the overall percent complete is 90%. Going to page 2 on the report, our industrial commercial section completed 7,751 inspections at a rate of 89.4%. And our harbor industrial unit completed a total of 731 inspections at a rate of 101 completion rate percent. And lastly, our harbor industrial unit, which includes our oil well, we carved out that specific area, completed a total of 1,147 completed oil well inspections with 24 abandonments, which equates to 100% completion within our oil wells. So the miscalculations, those are the ones we needed to correct on the record. I'm extremely pleased with our overall performance of our Fire Prevention Bureau as a whole. And as you know, 2020 has been a very challenging year for everybody in many, many ways. The majority of our workforce within the Fire Prevention Bureau had worked at the testing sites the full first quarter of this calendar year. So for our workforce, both sworn and civilian, to be able to complete what we were able to complete with all the challenges, we're extremely proud they're able to pivot based off of the needs and immediate needs of the community. So we just wanted to ensure that we corrected those statistics. Also, another piece that I wanted to highlight in which our workforce had to pivot to a different mission was following the Boyd Street incident, in which we went through and conducted a sweep of to identify an additional 336 potential facilities that had unregulated hazardous materials. So that was a really important mission that our members also stepped up and still were able to complete overall 90%. That's all I had to do in regards to the corrections. If you have any questions specific to the report, I'd be happy to answer any of them.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Since we have, I have just a couple of comments about the brush collection area. Last year, some of the people were having difficulty finding out, because of the new computer system, whether or not the brush clearance, whether they had passed inspection. And that's all they wanted to know. And it seems as if they had to go through a lot of other boxes before they could get there, or they never got there. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and also to find out if brush clearance is going to be delayed because of the COVID like it was last year.
Right, so thank you for the questions. The software that we have in place, especially for the community to reach out and whether or not they passed or didn't, that's the first time I've really heard they've had issues. So we'll make sure that we follow up on that, just because they should know whether or not they passed or failed as soon as possible. In regard to any type of delays that we had last year, we're still right on task to what we normally would start. In fact, our big primary mission this year is to ensure that the information is very clear to all the constituents, so they know the timelines. If anything had changed, it's going to change back to where we were originally, so there's a change there. So we're going to make sure that the public is going to be aware of any date changes But as for COVID impacting us this year, we had a lot of lessons learned, and we still were able to meet 100%, which was really amazing considering all the challenges we had. So that's a plan. That's at least the plan forward.
So they will be getting written notices
Yes,
this
ma'am.
year?
Yes.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you for all the work and thanks for the detailed report.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. It seems like you're generally keeping up pretty well. Just there's a couple areas I noticed you're ticking up on the greater than 1 year overdues.
Mhm.
In particularly in the public safety section, it seems like there's a couple numbers that are getting over 5% in the 1 year and 2 year overdues. Can you just speak a little bit about that?
Sure thing. Let me just pull that up real quick. So that will be on page 10 that you're looking at. So
11.
and 11, sure. So, and that was the real benefit. We actually track, although we're doing this report on an annual basis, we track our statistics weekly. So, you know, we do watch those numbers bump up. Obviously, with the challenges we had last year, we did have to prioritize the initial inspections, but we do work backwards according to what should be the oldest. So, you know, the increase in percent, we watch really closely. So I'm not surprised there was an uptick just because we did have a lot of the challenges coming our way with our members, you know, being detailed to different areas. But we are watching that really closely at this point forward. So we're working back. So Chief Beard is in charge of that section. And I know he's working on that specifically as we speak. So we've got our inspectors going back. The other thing that there's a little uptick on too, and a slowdown per se, is on the legal side. So if we do send them to legal, we do have an increase on the issues with going back on the initial, or I should say the secondary inspections. So there's a little uptick this year on that, but moving forward, we'll make sure that we are focusing on the kind of that orange area and the red area so that we don't have a number of re-inspections that are old. And plus it becomes problematic when we, if it's over a year, we have to go back and do an inspection anyway. So we watch that real closely.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I noticed public assemblage in June had a 15%, and then went from 15 looks like to 0 by the end of the year. So it seems like keeping track of it. It just we've seen in the past that this stuff can get away from us, and then we end up really in trouble. So it's good to hear you're keeping an eye on it. Okay, thank you.
Real quick, just to, also one last point on the PA. I'm glad you brought that up. You think of what 2020 did to all of the businesses. What we found was there's a big uptick in businesses. We may have done the first half of the inspection and written a notice, but then we go back for the re-inspection and they're closed. They actually had over 300 businesses just that we tracked alone that were closed and we couldn't even get in or get back in for a re-inspect. So that might have impacted our stats a little bit. But again, you know, looking forward to 2021, we're hoping that these businesses are back and open again.
Yeah, it makes sense there'd be some kind of warping of the trends with all the kind of unusual aspects of this past year. So we'll see where we are. I guess I'd expect another year everything would have smoothed out at that point, get caught up, and all that stuff to be taken care of. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thanks for all the hard work on this.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we will need to entertain a motion to adopt the report as amended.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Jimmy Woods Gray, I move that we receive and file with amendments report BFC 21-025.
Very good. Thank you.
Second, Commissioner Hara.
Second, Commissioner Hart. Thank you. Leticia, you can go ahead and call the roll.
Pardon me. Glazier,
Aye.
Hara,
Aye.
Ninberg,
Aye.
and Woods Gray.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Very good. Thank you. We'll now move to item 3G. This is a report by the Department on drop enrollees and quarterly diversity reports.
Commissioner, I can answer any questions the commission has, but I think you held this for public comment.
Correct.
I-
Commissioners, any comments on this
I
before we
just
move
have,
to public comment?
I have one question, or Commissioner
Go-
Neighbor.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for putting this together. This is great. I just had a question on how you got to the cumulative projected and actual exits. Like, how did that, just what was the calculation to get those numbers?
So Commissioner, Chief Everett here, Chief of Staff, the numbers are derived from the drop enrollees. So the reason why it says projected is because the exit date is dependent on the individual. We do know when they entered the drop program. We don't know if they're going to complete a 5-year cycle. They might leave early. So it's titled cumulative projected based on the number of people that have entered drop. And then when it says actual exits, when that date comes along, that number will define who actually left the program on their exit date, or perhaps before their exit date. But that's really the best we can do, because we don't know if somebody's going to leave early or when they're projected to leave. But that's all we have to go on.
Right. Do you have the diversity numbers for that?
It's
For
all,
those that-
I don't know what you mean. Everything we have is combined into this report.
Okay, hold on a second. So you have those that actually are exiting, but do you have the list of everybody who has entered drop?
Yes,
And that's in this report?
yes.
Broken out by,
Male and female and all genders, I mean, all race ethnicities that are tracked.
okay, so like, let's say, no, this is helpful because I'm just trying to figure out where these numbers come from. Okay, so like, let's say fiscal year page, it's like the third page, second page in, right? So fiscal year 2023, 24, you have the total 204, but your cumulative projected is 472. Do you see that? Just as an example.
Right, so that number is from the date, from this date cumulative to that date. Does that make sense?
Okay, I get it. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's that counter is clicking
Okay,
on a 5-year basis, or perhaps they leave early.
got it. Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
I want to commend Chief Graham Everett for the Everett. I was getting the name all mixed up. Forgive me.
You can call me anything you want, ma'am.
I don't know why. Chief Everett for the report, because it does have a lot of information and things that we've discussed in the past, and we can really look at this. What it seems to say to me, though, is that we have a lot of work to do in the next 5 years, and especially when it comes to African-American firefighters. There are quite a number of them in the drop program, and over the next 5 years. And 1 year, it's a really huge number. I would like to hear from the recruitment department on how they plan, how this support is affecting their goals and future plans. Because this report has a lot to do with how they go about recruiting, and also, well, something else will come up in the equity, the racial equity report, which I will discuss there too. But I would like to hear from that department, the recruitment department, as to how this report affects them and their work that they will be doing in the future.
Yes, ma'am. The couple things. Number one, the report, this report before you is generated by our personnel services section. And as we mentioned about 6 months ago, when we first started talking about combining a lot of these efforts, it was a pretty heavy lift, but personnel services found a way to do, to combine the reports and provide you the information that you were looking for all in one. So hats off to them for finding a way to knock it out. To your second point, we've provided a board report within the last 6 months that kind of goes through some of the promotional timelines and recruitment plans, keeping these numbers in mind. So those other reports are populated from these numbers because we've anticipated these numbers. So we can definitely dust those off and bring them back to this commission, so you can take a look at those as well.
Because I really appreciate the fact that the personnel department has met the goals of putting this report together and assisting the department and giving us a clear picture of what the drop program really looks like. And thank you very much for your support and help in getting this done.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Woods Gray, this is Fire Chief. If I could add to that.
Good morning, Fire Chief.
Good morning. We always track this data, and in our proposed budget for next fiscal year, we're requesting approval to hire 180 firefighters in 3 drill tower classes. I accelerate the hiring when I see big numbers of vacancies approaching, and I'm able to reduce hiring when lower numbers of people are retiring. So the report that will be forthcoming, we will provide that, and I'd like them to give you an overview of how historically we have addressed this and how we will continue to do so.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks for your leadership.
Thank you.
Yeah, one last thing. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate this, and I'm so grateful that personnel was able to accomplish this. Just one last thing. Are we tracking how long people stay in drop? And since we have the racial equity report coming, based on race, gender, intersectionality?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we could probably reach out to the pensions department to see what the percentages are. I would venture to say the vast majority of people remain for the entire 5 years, but that's not entirely 100%. So I can see what kind of data they have available for us.
Oh, that'd be great.
But that actually, the exits would come from another department. So we'll have to see what our personnel services and what the pensions department can provide on that.
Okay, excellent. I think it'll just give us kind of a good picture, to see how long people stay in drop and whatnot. I know the incentives are good, so to stay in for the full 5. All right, thank you. Yeah, would love to get that information.
And we have a public comment.
Very good. Let's go ahead and take our public comments. And it is from Freddie Escobar, is that correct?
Yes, and I'll check
Correct.
for others.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Go ahead.
Freddie Escobar. Morning, everyone. President of United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, Local 112, representing over 3,400 brothers and sisters of the LAFD. As you can see from the report in front of you, the number of projected firefighters that we will be losing through drop program is going to grow to an alarming starting in the fiscal year 2022 and 2023, which is just 15 months away. Even more alarming is the following fiscal year, 2023 and 2024, where we're projected to lose 204 firefighters to drop. I'd like to remind this commission that even with the firefighter hiring that was restarted with the election of Mayor Garcetti back in 2013, the LAFD still remains the most understaffed big city fire department per capita in the country. For point of reference, the city of Houston, which is the 4th largest city in America, has an estimated population of 2.3 million people. The Houston Fire Department has more than 4,000 sworn firefighters. Here in California, the city of San Francisco has a population of just under 1 million people, but they have a fire department that is nearly 1,700 sworn firefighters. When you compare that to the city of Los Angeles, where we have a population estimated at 3.9 million people and a fire department with about 3,400 sworn firefighters, that means Houston, which has about 1.6 million fewer people than the city of Los Angeles, has a fire department with more firefighters than the LAFD. San Francisco has a population that is about 25% the size of our city population, but they have about half as many firefighters as we do. I bring this up to emphasize just how important it is to ramp up our recruitment our drill towers and to keep up with the massive numbers of LFD firefighters that we will be losing over the next few years. This is essential not only for the safety of the public, but the safety of the firefighters as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, caller.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
I would love to get a report from the from UFLAC on ways that they think that we could improve this recruitment program. Because I'm sure they have some ideas. I would love to hear them or see them.
Okay, Chief, perhaps you, if UFLAC leadership is amenable, perhaps that's something we could learn from them.
Because it is, we do not want to be understaffed in a crisis, and we are in line for crises all the time in the city of Los Angeles. So we want to do everything that we can to improve the numbers.
Yeah, let
Thank
me
you.
add to that. I agree. You know, COVID has kind of impacted a lot of our recruitment efforts because everything's been shut down, of course. But we're always open to have discussions with labor and others on how to improve. Once we return to normal, our recruitment efforts will return to what they were before, pre-COVID, which were very successful, as evidenced by the increased diversity throughout our department. So what I propose is that when we come back with the presentation from recruit training, we can invite UFLAC to comment at that time.
Oh, good. That would be great, because you know, this city is continuing to grow. It somehow grows in every department except city employees. Not just fire, because services throughout the whole city are stretched because of the number. We have all of the sports teams. We have, so many new things coming to the city, which I think is having a great impact on public service.
Yeah,
Very
I
good.
do want, go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, go ahead, Commissioner. Yes.
Commissioner Ninberg, did you have comment?
Sure, yes. So I definitely wanted to thank Union President Escobar for coming to speak to us about this. I couldn't agree more. I think that there's definitely a budget issue, and if we could, I don't know what the process is for increasing the budget, but I think that would be beneficial as well, because I could not agree more. You know, the numbers that we have they haven't changed since when, Chief? How long have they been at 3,400?
We've been slowly adding back our firefighters since fiscal year 9-10, the Great Recession.
Right.
But we're still not there. We're getting closer, but we're still not there. Our proposed budget for next fiscal year is taking our drill towers to capacity to get 180 people out of the training at the end of the fiscal year. If we continue to do that, we'll be in good shape for the future years when we anticipate these big numbers of retirements.
So does that mean that the amount of money that we are requesting is adequate?
For next fiscal year, if we get the amount of money that will allow us to hire 180 firefighters, we'll be on track to meet that critical month of January of 2024, when we're losing 117 firefighters in 1 month.
But not, okay, excellent. But not expanding the department.
No, we're not trying to expand. I'm trying to keep up with attrition so that our position stays the same. But I'm not opposed to expanding. Right now, it's just very economic challenge by the entire city.
I know. I mean, there's budget cuts everywhere. So I definitely want to commend you for trying, and certainly at minimum, we should be trying to keep the numbers where they're at, but definitely I would be in favor of expanding.
Agreed.
Okay, are we ready to move ahead with a motion on this one?
Oh, yeah. Mr. Chair, Jimmy Woods Gray, I move that we receive and file BFC 21026.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hora.
All right, we got 2 seconds on that one. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
Leisure,
Aye.
Hara,
Aye.
Ninberg,
Aye.
Woods Gray,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and move to item 4A. This is a report by the Department of Los Angeles Fire Department Racial Equity Plan.
Good morning, Vice President Glazier, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, City Attorney, Stephen Gutierrez, Assistant Chief Commander of Training and Support Bureau. Before you, you have file number 21-023, which is entitled Los Angeles Fire Department Racial Equity Plan. I'm going to give a basic overview and summary, obviously with the recommendation to receive and file. I will go into some specifics on the outlined missions and goals and updates currently at this time. In accordance with the City of Los Angeles racial equity vision to end systemic, institutional, and structural racism in the City of Los Angeles, the LAFD has established a racial equity plan, which at its core is to ensure racial equity by focusing on providing equitable opportunities and access for all races. This will be done with an emphasis on high performance, organizational inclusion, and workforce diversity. The City of Los Angeles has identified 3 initial areas of focus or missions to realize our racial vision. 1, city workforce, 2, city operations, and 3, city services. Transparency, accountability, and the ability to measure outcomes are critical for this action plan success. For this reason, we are establishing standard metrics and methods for measuring racial progress. The following is an overview, which is divided into 7 sections, from retrospective to number 7, planning for the future. In the analysis, the department developed a racial action plan and conducted several working group meetings with all involved stakeholders within the organization. The information shared was about existing equity initiatives to increase racial equity, lessons learned, and impacts the department and the community served. Verification of equal opportunity data was provided, and specific program goals were established for future racial equity planning. I took part of those meetings, and they were very fruitful, very good discussions from all levels. And out of that, I think the department developed a very good equity plan in alignment with the mayor's overall 34 plan racial equity plan. Next, we looked at section 1, which is a retrospective. This is where the department was asked, why is racial equity important to your department, and how has this commitment to racial equity shaped your department's success? The Los Angeles Fire Department, the LAFD, is a progressive organization serving those who live, work, and visit the City of Los Angeles. The department's role in the community is very dynamic and serves needs varying given the diverse communities and changing demographics throughout the city. Holding ourselves to the highest standards of performance, including racial equity and inclusion, is a key part of our commitment to serve the community, enhance quality of life, and nurture public trust, which is inherent in the core values that guide our behavior and include the following: service, professionalism, integrity, respect, innovation, and trust. Furthermore, racial equity and inclusion is extremely important to the LAFD employees as a whole because it creates and helps to maintain a positive atmosphere and professional work environment for all members, sworn and civilian. Racial equity has shaped portions of the LAFD's success in the efforts and that the efforts focused on small groups of policy priorities wherein the department has been considerably more intentional to embed racial equity principles and strategies into its vision, goals, operations, programs, services, and policies. In fact, the LAFD became integrated in 1956 when African-American firefighters were allowed the opportunity to work at other fire stations. Since then, there have been numerous directives, changes, and policies regarding equity and inclusion in the workplace. We realize the strength of any organization rests in its greatest source, that's its people. And the LAFD leadership cannot accomplish any of these racial equity and inclusion goals without employees to accomplish the work and embrace the vision while being guided by competent leadership. In the next section, we are asked to share 3 successes the department has regarding racial equity, how the department promotes fairness in the workplace, and what equity initiatives have been implemented or advocated for. Number 1, the LFD has implemented several training programs specific to diversity, racial equity, and inclusion. And in fact, in the last 10 years, there's been a strong emphasis on this topic, which includes the Leadership Academy, implicit bias training, leading with compassion, human relations, and annual EEO training. All department members have been trained to understand perception, prejudice, and implicit bias. The ultimate goal and focus for this training has been to engage all employees for sustained effectiveness and link organizational priorities, which include racial equity and inclusion. Number 2, since 2014, the LAFD has developed and implemented recruit and hiring practices that promotes fairness in attracting and hiring well-qualified and diverse candidates. These milestones have been relative to racial equity and inclusion have been completed through several effective efforts, including the exhaustive review of the LAFD recruit hiring of firefighters by the RAND Corporation and Mayor Garcetti's Public Safety Innovation Team. This has increased the overall racial diversity by 22% compared to fiscal year 2015-2016. Number 3, in 2018, the LAFD created Professional Standards Division along with the complaint tracking system. The development of PSD and CTS provided consistent application of department rules, regulations, and policies to create greater accountability, fairness, and inclusion for all levels within the organization. Then we were asked to share 3 specific stories of how initiatives and programs of the department has implemented or utilized have impacted the department, the community we served. First was Fire Service Day. This has been a long-standing tradition within the LAFD and is a special celebration which has historically brought the community and firefighters together for a day of education, skills demonstration, and social interaction. However, within the last decade, community-based fire captains and various stations have undergone even further. They have taken on and initiated other programs to include car shows, pancake breakfast, and concerts throughout these initiatives. This innovation expansion of the Fire Service Day has demonstrated has strengthened relationships and built bridges between the communities and the fire department. Number 2, the LAFD has implemented the firefighter magnet schools at Dorsey, Banning, Wilson, Monroe, and West Adams, which are all geographically located throughout the city of Los Angeles and part of the Los Angeles Unified School District. The monumental effort in partnership with the LAUSD, which has included an executed memorandum of understanding, has resulted in a significant impact on youth of Los Angeles relative to educate in public safety, along with reframing the firefighter prototype into an attainable and realistic career goal for a very diverse school population and communities served throughout the organization. And finally is the Spark of Love program and Toys for Needy Children program. This is a year-round program. However, during the holiday season, it comes together in services throughout the communities of Los Angeles, providing toys, bonding families, and partners within the communities that we serve. This has had a ripple effect and efforts that support reaches communities within beyond the city limits and further impacts residents and people throughout the Los Angeles area. The next section is basically a breakdown in metrics, which is a basic workforce analysis report, which looks at all positions within the LAFD. We've taken that, we've expanded it. If you look at the small box within the report, we've eliminated 1 position, added 3 positions, and we've added other columns. Columns such as other, we split also columns with other male, other female, 2 or more races, or 2 or more races and females. We've done this so that we can have a better architecture of what the department looks like, both ethnicity, racial, and gender. And next is the specific goals and programs. I'm going to dive into these just real briefly and give you a general overview. In this area, as I mentioned at the very beginning, there was 3 areas that we looked at, missions that were provided. That is equitable workforce, equitable operations, and equitable services. But each of those three missions were broken down objectives and goals. There's 15 goals with 3 corresponding objectives that the department looked at that are initiatives that would align with our current and future plans to ensure racial equity within the organization. The first one was ensuring that the city hires and retains equitable workforce. Fire and EMS cadet apprenticeship program. Description was to hire fire cadets to work as a third person RA. This was a launch date that is ongoing. However, I will report that the job bulletin has been developed, it's been approved, and we are currently seeking funding to get this done. Obviously, with COVID restrictions, a lot of these things that involve the cadets and involve Crew 3 and such not have been impacted by it. Our target completion date is fiscal year 2023-24. Support needed is obviously funding, resources that are involved in it, personnel department, administrative department, and also training and support bureau. Second is professional development program, formalized mentorship, employee individual development program, our plan. This is one that is near and dear to my heart. This was to produce and implement a professional development program to direct, guide, and mentor members seeking professional development. The track report, specifically the wide demographics throughout the organization. I can report currently, we have been looking closely at this and assessing our current structure to see if it supports professional development and bring alignment within the organization. Shortly, we'll be developing a white paper to present to the fire chief and some realignment in these efforts. The target completion date is fiscal year 23-24. Again, resource or support needed is funding, along with all other stakeholder involvement to include both UFLAC, Collective Bargaining Unit, Chief Officers Association, Training Support Bureau. The third is produce and update performance review system. This is to align the LAFD's vision, mission, and core values with fairness in the process that will again align with our professional development program.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
Chief, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just perhaps on the recommendations, since there's a lot of them, perhaps we could just allow commissioners to pick ones they may have specific questions on, just to save you some time in sort of reading through all of them. You have great details in here. Commissioners, would that be acceptable for us just to, on the recommendations, to point to specific questions we may have at this point? We can go through it. We can pick out any ones we'd like to get more details on. Would that be okay? Rather than just reading them all from here?
Did he have closing remarks that he was going to make at the end?
Sure, thank you. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, Chief, you have some closing remarks you'd like to skip to, and then we can ask any specific question we may have on the recommendations, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just in conclusion, the LAFD continues to support the City of Los Angeles racial equity vision and goals. To that end, the LAFD Racial Equity Plan provides the methods and goals for the department to achieve the City of Los Angeles racial equity vision and goals. And I can answer any questions at this time.
Great, thank you for the completeness of this report and for bringing it. And thank you to Commissioner Woods-Gray again for ensuring this came today. So Commissioner Woods-Gray, as a requester, did you have any opening comments or questions about this?
I would like to say that it's a very thorough report. Covers a lot of information and a lot of actions and a lot of things that I think probably need to happen in the department. A lot of things that are happening in the department that are good. And as I read through it, there were the things that came to mind. For instance, I'm not sure how they evaluate the success and effectiveness of the training programs, because you can go through the implicit bias training, but is there anything that happens afterwards to find out what impact it had upon the services or the people who took the training? I think page by page, and as you said, there's so much information. I believe that, let me see, one of the main thing that I really, there are a lot, I have some on every page, so I don't want, that would take us a long time to go through every page all over again. But on the LAFD hiring and background checks, that's an area that I'm very interested in seeing. I like the suggestions that they have there, because I have had some issues with the background checks and the interview processes of the way it's handled now. And I would like to also find out if there's some way that we can build in an appeal process for candidates who actually end up or sent those letters of non-select. In discussions with people who've received those, sometimes it's very interesting. And then in checking back on some of the investigators, for instance, if you have an investigator who is a retired police officer who fails many African Americans, now there's proof of this, so this is not, I'm just not just saying that. And then you look at the background of the retired police officer and you find out that he was actually involved in the shooting of an African American. It kind of raises a question of, should that person be checking the background of these people? So I would like to have an appeals process somewhere along the way in this process, but I've always thought that LAFD could do a better job than with the background checks and than the people that we presently have doing some of those things. And my other question was, I know some of the things in the plan are already ongoing, but the things, for instance, like in the hiring background checks, at what stage is that? And when could we look to see some changes in that area?
Yes, Commissioner, I've just started the dialogue with the personnel department, specifically to the backgrounds, not only looking at the diversification of the background board, but also the background process. So that's just initiated since I've been here. So I've had one conversation, but I will be outlining and can report back on what that's going to look like.
Oh, good. Thank you. In your short time, you're moving. I like it. Let's see, what else did I have here? On the PSD department, somewhere in here, let's see. I like the adoption program. That's a great idea. To carry that, I would be really great. Also on the volunteer program, I have always admired Crew 3 because of the work that they do. But I just wish somehow we could build into that a program whereby either they're guaranteed hiring as a LAFD firefighter or a firefighter somewhere, or that they get paid. I see that there is talk of providing a stipend. So that's moving in the right direction, because those people work, I mean, they are so dedicated to that crew. When I found out that they were not paid people, I was just shocked, and I admired them even more so. And their desire to want to be a firefighter, is demonstrated by them doing all of that volunteer work before they get to the stages of actually applying to be a firefighter. So that, I like that part in there also.
Commissioner Woods Gray, can I add to that? This is Fire Chief on the issue of Crew 3.
Yes.
I'll tell you that every Crew 3 applicant that reaches my desk, I cannot think of one I did not offer a job to.
Oh, wonderful.
But that does, we have to remember, before they get to me, they got to go through their background. There's a lot of things that could kick them out if they don't score high enough in the oral interview. I never see them. But I share your admiration for the young men and women who are involved with Crew 3, because they've proven themselves over time, and we're able to ask the supervisor their thoughts on those volunteers. And, you know, it's kind of self-answering because they have to interview to become a volunteer with Crew 3. So they already have high standards. So
Yes.
almost 100% of the time, the supervisor has given us glowing remarks, and therefore I have made job offers to all of them.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. I also felt that the statement in here somewhere that talks about the fire stations reflecting the community is a big dream of ours. I don't know how we go about getting it implemented or carried out and getting it done. But everything that's written on the paper is correct and sounds really wonderful. But I just look forward to the day that that's a reality. And I'm going to stop so that someone else can have comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, I think, for the comments. Commissioner Hara, did you have any comments, or Commissioner Nimberg?
Yes, although it's, hi. Wow.
Hi.
Chief Gutierrez, this is quite a report. It is unbelievably comprehensive, and I want to commend you for putting together. This is a huge undertaking.
What is that noise?
I don't know. Just top level, just looking at it as I was looking through all of the proposed ideas, it looks like, I mean, this looks like an entire department, quite honestly. The capacity it's going to take to track all this data, to make sure that all of these programs are implemented. I want to make sure that this department is successful in implementing these. These are very, very ambitious goals, and I support them 100%. I just don't know. Can you speak to the capacity of, just looking at, let's say going to tracking background investigators. You've got, who's tracking, the pass fail rates of the investigators' applicants that they're reviewing. Who's tracking all of this? And I just want to make sure that we have the capacity and the financial backing to do this. So just top level, and then I can go into some more granular questions, but maybe that's a Chief Terrazas question. Chief Gutierrez, Chief Terrazas, you can share that.
I can answer some of that. So in looking at first of all, the beauty of the plan, I think, is that really it took all stakeholder involvement. So many of the ideas and many of the initiatives that you see in the plan were not just from the administration or one specific area in the administration. It was from all stakeholder involvement that had, time and tenure and knew the organization well. And particularly when it came to the community, what I would kind of tag as community social responsibility programs, really understood where the department and where there were gaps with the community. When we look at things associated with the training aspect of it, the people in the work groups, vast experience in the areas of training and the areas that involve the recruitment efforts and the recruitment guidelines and the backgrounds. Again, they all had relevant information. So as much as it looks like it's a huge undertaking, we have a plan. So the execution of it will be closely monitored. It's in my shop, and it's something I believe in. So I'm not saying that it's unachievable, but it has to have some agility. And we just talked this morning, and I spoke with the fire chief on some of these things that aren't in the plan that we also are doing. So as things start to unfold, as obviously some of the restrictions with COVID start to unfold, we'll be able to do even more. But the plan as it sits now is very well achievable. It may take a little bit more time in doing, but it is a plan that's worthy, and the department's committed to it.
If I could add on to that too, Commissioner Nimberg, I concur with what Chief Gutierrez is sharing, and before him, his predecessor, Chief Rideout. We worked on this together prior to submission to the mayor's office. I look at these as an extension of things that we're already doing. And on page 5, Commissioner Woods-Gray, you mentioned about reflecting the people we serve. That was one of my main tenets upon being appointed fire chief in 2015. And I'm proud to say in page 5, it points out that with regard to our hiring, we've increased our overall racial diversity by 22% since fiscal year 14-15.
Yeah, that was impressive.
That wasn't an accident. That was intentional. And we're going to continue those efforts because it's simply the right thing to do.
It's true. Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, that was, but as far as, okay, so you have the capacity to implement all this. That's all I'm just asking. I want to make sure that what we're advocating for, there's a capacity, there's the finances and whatnot.
If you, on the one area, on each one of those identified objectives and the goals associated with it, there are some resource needs and other impacts. So that is taken into consideration. Again, there will need to be agility as we navigate through the plan and execute. However, in all those areas, there will be, and there could be a funding source requirement or a staffing force requirement. However, as we go through it and navigate through that, we'll be making those asks appropriately.
Okay, excellent, excellent. I just wanted to say it is such a ambitious plan, and I do agree, and I want to commend the chief and commend the department for the increase in 5 years of 22% in diversity. That's great. So can we add just a couple of things? The apprenticeship program, you said you're looking for funding for that still?
Yes.
And that's through personnel? Or is that through the department?
Well, there was a few ideas out there. Obviously, one internal, but also external. We're also looking at partnerships as well, and how that looks like and how it unfolds. So right now, in looking at it the way it currently sits, mainly internal, we'll also be looking external, and there have been some efforts looking external. We'll expand those efforts. The biggest thing that is right now is a roadblock is some of this stuff, and a lot of it is COVID restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of this is moot until we get everyone vaccinated. Okay, so the page 10, your the training academy diversity, I'd like to request just that added to the quarterly diversity report. Just getting the staff diversity.
Okay.
And so, and also page 11, tracking backgrounds and their diversity. Is that possible to get as well? I don't know, because that's personnel. How does that, I don't know how that would work.
Personnel, that is in personnel, and I have started some of that dialogue. So as I get more inclined to how we navigate through that, I can actually provide more information. But as we stand right now, we've just started dialogue on that specifically.
Right, and can I just say, I appreciate you addressing that. I think it is really important, and want to commend you on that. And so, yeah, I look forward to seeing if it's possible to even get that, or to get that information. Also, what is the status on the organizational study? I think you had it on page 11, it says obtain funding. So you have obtained funding, yes?
I can answer that, Commissioner. We did obtain it, but it was swept because of our deficit. And most recently, we thought we had funding through the Innovation Commission, but that was also denied. So we had a meeting last week with Personnel Department, and we're looking at collaborating with them because there was a lot of overlap because they had already made that ask as well to the Innovation Commission. So we're working right now with Personnel Department to try to combine our efforts, and perhaps with both departments working in the same direction, we can obtain that funding.
Okay, so I see. Just working together to try to get the funding back.
Yes, and there was a lot of overlap between their request and our request. So I decided, let's talk to them to see, is there a possibility of collaboration? And because Personnel Department touches every department in the city,
Absolutely.
I think I like our chances of getting some funding through that avenue.
Okay, for the organizational study, yes? Excellent. I mean, I take it you said that there was a lot of overlap. Are they looking at doing this in other departments or just with fire?
Oh, they were looking at other departments, and I'm looking at, well, maybe we can be one chapter of their report, a focus on our department. Our department's unique, as you know, because of our 24-hour working conditions, and they're open to it. We're also talking about collaboration with university to reduce some of the cost. So we'll keep you apprised, but the first meeting was very promising.
Okay, so it'll be basically under their house, right? Conducted under them?
If this moves forward in a partnership, they would be the lead, but we would be a major partner.
Okay. Okay, and I take it do you know when you're going to hear back from them on that?
It's still early. I'll have to get back to you on that timeline as well, but we have not given up our efforts. We've been looking at new options every time the original plan is defunded.
I know. I mean, considering we voted on it in 2018. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a couple years. And 2020 was special. I get it. Okay, so I look forward to hearing about that. On page 12, you said you're adding the mission, vision, equity to mission, values, principles, and vision statements?
So, and part of the existing workplace work group, that's something that will be involved in that, in the fire chief's direction on that as we navigate through that. There have been discussions on that, but we are still moving forward in that area.
And the work group, does that include the employee organizations, Bomberos, Stentorians, LEWFS?
Yes.
Excellent. Cool. And what is PFF work environment surveys?
Probationary firefighter.
Ah, gotcha. Oh, have you started those?
I believe Quality Assurance does a version of it. We're going to take a closer look at that and see if that would fit into the overall plan.
Excellent. Okay, I think Commissioner Woodgray asked the other questions I had, I agree with her on the fire station adoption program and the Crew 3 stipends as well. Those are great ideas. Oh,
Great.
and also, wait, one last question. Can this report come to commission every 6 months instead of annually?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Commissioner Hara, did you have anything to, any comments or questions?
No, not really. I think, the other commissioners have really covered some the key points I was going to ask about. And, I think it's a great plan, and hopefully the implementation will go, without issues.
Very good, thank you. So for me, I definitely agree with a lot of what was said. And I appreciate the comments of the other commissioners. Just to add a little emphasis for myself, the Fire Cadet EMS Apprenticeship Program, great. I would love to see that move forward. I know we've been working on that for a number of years. I'm still interested to understand if there is a way to use perhaps use the random sample process so that when they move to the ambulance, it has a much more direct path into hiring. So I'd be interested to talk with offline with anyone in the department as well as the personnel attorney about that. On the Lfd background checks, really appreciate the comments that Commissioner Woods-Gray made. I think not only in addition to what she said, I also just want to highlight that when you have individuals, particularly people of color who may live in areas that have heavy policing and may be subject to being pulled over, that those interactions often result in items that appear on a background check. And I think that's something we need to be conscious of. If I could ask, I know that Chief, you're looking into the process right now. I think it'd be great for us just as a commission to understand the background check process. I know we have one, but I don't actually really understand how it works, what we're looking for in there. And so that would be something I would really love for us to be able to explore, just what the current process is, as you are starting to think about how we might address some inherent biases in the way that program works. I also just want to second the organizational study and appreciate, Chief, that you are looking for ways to get that done. I do think that is a really, really important thing for us to understand our department better and help us understand the changes we need to make. On the commission meeting, I agree with Commissioner Nimberg. I think every 6 months would be great to have that come. And also on Crew 3, I would also ask on Crew 3, as we look at the idea of payment there and stipending, I know that's a budget issue, but also considering, back to my earlier comments about how we might participate in second chance hiring there, and think about a process that would allow us to include graduates of coming from the fire camps, or particularly from the Ventura Training Center, that facility that is run by CCC, supported by Anti-Recidivism Coalition and CAL FIRE. So I would ask you look at that. And then lastly, I think if we're going to do this, if we're going to implement this, there's all, money obviously becomes a factor here. I think it's important that when we have our budgeting process, that we actually look at our plan and are able to specifically say, here is where we are allocating money this year, and what we are moving forward and what we're not moving forward. And I would like that to be called out within our budgeting process. And so I'd ask that this commission be able to see really clearly what we as a commissioner at least are adopting for funding, recognizing obviously that it goes through the rest of the process, but that at least allows us to tie budget priorities from the commission level to implementation of the report. I think as this does come back to us on a regular basis, I think it would be great for us to, we can track and see where we're making progress on things. So thank you for all the hard work on this. I think it's a great start. As other commissioners have said, what we do with this now, it's on us. It's in some ways, it is the easiest part to identify the things that we think we need to do, and the hard part is actually doing them. So I look forward to continuing to push this very, very important action plan forward and seeing what we're able to accomplish.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, just a couple more things. One, I would be remiss if I did not thank Chief Rideout for his efforts as a leader on this particular project at the very beginning and through to the end, because it was completed by the time he retired. And also to congratulate him on his retirement and hope that he enjoys the best life, which is now retirement. After reading this report, brought to mind that the PSD department is a division, is a division that I would like to have the commission to have a report on. The work, the nature of their work, the number of cases, what they really do, you know, that came to mind as I read this report. And the other one thing on background checks that comes to mind is that I've spoken, well, marijuana comes up often in the background checks. And now that marijuana is legal, both medically and for social use, I really hope that we can begin to look at marijuana from a different perspective when we are doing background checks. So somehow that needs to fit into there. And I agree with the 6 months reporting back, and was happy that whoever put the report together thought of reporting back to the commission. That was but I think 6 months as we go along is better, because then we can get a feel for how it's really being implemented, what is really happening. And they can tell us which parts are being finished and where there's a hang up, and how we may even be able to assist in some of the ways to help with the implementation. And I just, whatever team put it together, thank you for the detailed work that you did in looking at this department, because it was a huge job. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner, and I second your congratulations to Chief Rideout, and and your wishes for his best life happening now. All right, I think with that, unless there's any other commissioner comments, we'll go ahead and turn to public comment. Any other commissioner comments before we open public comment? Okay, very good. Leticia, if you want to go ahead and call the public comments.
All right, Leticia, am I on? Hello.
Yes. Good morning.
Leticia, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hey, good morning, guys. Again, Freddie Escobar, president of UFLAC. So in the quarterly diversity report, it shows that our department is currently 48% white, 31% Latino, 11.5% Black, and 6% Asian American. It also shows that our department consists of 96% men and 4% women, right? UFLAC is a strong supporter of racial equity in the LAFD, but we also recognize there's always room for improvement. It must be recognized that today, LAFD is not the LAFD of 70 years ago, when Black firefighters were first allowed the opportunity to work citywide at newly integrated fire stations in 1956. In the last 15 years, our fire department has had 3 African-American fire chiefs, and today we have a Latino fire chief who was born and raised right here in the city of Los Angeles. At UFLAC, I'm proud to serve as the elected president, representing more than 3,400 brothers and sisters of the LAFD, and serving on an executive board that is made up of 50% people of color, including our last 3 union presidents who have all been Latinos. I know that fire chief and his administration takes this issue very seriously. I applaud them for striving for a diverse LAFD that looks like the community we serve, and we're getting close to it. All without ever compromising the high standards that have been established to become a firefighter in what I believe, and I could tell you, I can speak for everybody, the best fire department in the country, the LAFD. Expanding diversity and maintaining the highest possible standards for our recruits are not mutually exclusive. We can continue to hire only the best, brightest LFD firefighters and do a better job with ethnic and gender diversity. UFLAC is committed to this goal, and we look forward to continue our work with the fire chief, his command staff, his team to continue to make positive strides with diversity and equity in the fire department, maintaining our standards of the LAFD. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other public comments on this matter?
Yes, good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you identify yourself?
Yes, good morning, commissioners. This is Jamie Moore, president of the Chief Officers Association, representing the Chief Officers of Los Angeles Fire Department. First off, I'd like to commend Chief Terrazas on his selection of Chief Gutierrez. We know it was a very difficult decision on who would replace Chief Rideout, and we'd like to congratulate Chief Gutierrez on his promotion to Deputy Chief. As Commissioner Nimberg stated, this report was a huge undertaking. As you can see, the LAFD has made great strides under the current leadership, yet we must recognize that we have a lot of work ahead of us. On behalf of the Chief Officers Association, I'd like to make it known that we support the City of Los Angeles' racial equity vision and their goals. LAFD Chief Officers are committed to supporting racial equity, diversity, and we will work in solidarity with our fellow labor representatives to support the plan in our efforts to achieve the city's goal. Like Commissioner Jimmy Woods Gray said, we look forward to one day that this is truly a reality for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief Moore. Leticia, do we have any additional comments? Leticia, are you there? Leticia?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Please identify yourself.
Sure. Sure, this is Robert Hawkins, Vice President with the Centurion Organization. I want to first say good morning to Madam President and all fire commissioners, the fire chief, and everybody in attendance. I thank you all for your attendance, and I thank the department for this racial equity report. This was a lot of work that went into this report in collaboration with employee organizations. One thing that I want to just point out, I really appreciate what Commissioner Jimmy Woods Gray brought up as far as the this report. You know, it looks good. It looks good, really good on paper. And one thing I don't want us to forget, that now we have to carry this into action. And this is a complicated situation. It's not an easy task, okay? Because the report pointed out issues within our background investigations into our drill towers. And if you guys can remember, we looked at the drill tower racial equity a while back, and come to find out, we have a large percentage of minorities and women that are being fired out of the drill tower. So it looks good to get numbers on the LAFD to get them hired, but we got to get these members into our fire stations and serving our communities. So this is something that's complicated. The expectation, the solution, you know, it's going to be complicated, but it's to work with employee organizations to point out other issues involved. We're not there yet, and I'm glad we're taking the first initial stride to make a report, but now let's do the hard work. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Leticia, any additional comments for this item?
Okay, stand by. I'm responding to a chat and 2 emails from staff. Let me mute this person, lower their hand, and see what else I have. No other hands are raised for this
Very
item.
good. At this time, I will entertain a motion to receive and file, to adopt the recommendations for this item. We are on, just as a reminder, we are on item 4A. Do I have a motion?
Jimmy Woods Gray, I move to receive and file the report 21-023.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Leticia, go ahead and call the roll.
Glazier,
Aye.
let me unmute Hara again. I've asked to unmute Commissioner Hara for you.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Ninberg,
Aye.
Woods Gray,
Aye.
motion carries.
Very good, thank you. We now move to public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
I will double check as I usually do, but he's no hands raised at the moment. Oh, Escobar has raised his hand. Stand by. I'm asking to unmute. I'll ask again.
All right. Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
We can go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. This is to reference, making a comment on 3 Alpha. I'd like for this body to look at some form of process while we're still in the technology or Zoom, and we're going to continue to be there, but to silence the voice of the only bargaining unit that represents the brothers and sisters of Local 112 is not only unprofessional by Ninberg and Glazier, it's not going to be tolerated. I had a comment from 3 Alpha, and because there was technical issues on your end, I don't get a voice, or I don't get to say what I say. Ninberg gets to go ahead and say, hey, it's closed, we're going to move forward. Thank you very much.
Just to be clear, that was the city attorney that made the advice. Commissioner Ninberg did not.
Yes.
She did not raise any issues on it. I would ask the city attorney to opine on that, but President Escobar, if you had a comment on it, I am under the same technological disadvantages as anybody here, so I was unaware. So apologies if you had something to say. You're certainly able to make the comments during public comment, but just for the record, that was the city attorney that advised us that we needed to move forward.
And if I may add, Commissioner Glazier, I believe when I polled Escobar, I only had for you 3G and 4A. So I'm sorry I didn't have that other one. You didn't comment that one. That's all I have.
Yes, so again, apologies if the result was that you had a comment, you were unable to speak, but there was no, certainly no intention to deprive you your opportunity for comment on the item. With that, if I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Do you have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner,
It's
aye
two
for me.
ayes. I'm just, yes, I'm going to mark go 2 of you as aye.
Sorry, that was an aye for Jimmy Woods Gray, Commissioner Woods Gray, an aye for Ninberg, an aye from Commissioner Glazier. Commissioner Hara?
I'm trying, asking him to unmute again because he calls via phone.
Aye.
So I have to request. Thank you, sir.
Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.